A smashed mug. A public humiliation. A confrontation that could change everything. Next week in Coronation Street. One tiny moment pushes Daniel Osborne closer to the edge than ever before. And this time the entire street can see it happening. Welcome back to Coronation Street Update, the channel where we uncover the emotional warfare, hidden motives, and devastating twists tearing Weatherfield apart. And this storyline? It's no longer just about scandal. It's about identity, humiliation, and the terrifying danger of watching somebody lose faith in their own future. Because Daniel starts the day trying to rebuild himself. But by the end of it, he may be ready to destroy everything. The emotional setup is heartbreaking. Daniel prepares for his return to work carrying the weight of weeks of accusations, gossip, and public scrutiny. Every corridor suddenly feels hostile. Every whisper feels loaded. And yet one person still believes in him completely. Bertie. In a genuinely emotional moment, Bertie gives his dad a world's best teacher mug before school. It's innocent, pure, hopeful. And for one brief second, Daniel finally smiles again. But then everything changes. Because Coronation Street understands something most dramas forget. Humiliation becomes far more devastating when it destroys moments of hope. As Daniel walks through the school corridor, Lily deliberately reads aloud the latest vicious posts from Truth Teller 2. Not quietly. Not awkwardly. Publicly. Like a performance. And suddenly Daniel isn't just a teacher anymore. He's become entertainment. A target. A walking scandal for people to mock. But then comes the moment that completely breaks him emotionally. Lily deliberately barges into Daniel. The mug slips from his hands. And smashes across the floor. Gone in seconds. Bertie's gift. Bertie's belief in him. Destroyed publicly while Jake films everything on his phone. And honestly, that scene feels far bigger than a broken mug. Because symbolically, it's Daniel watching the last piece of his self-worth shatter in front of an audience. And the truly disturbing part is how normalized this cruelty has become inside Weatherfield. Nobody steps in immediately. Nobody stops the humiliation. People watch. That silence says everything. And that's when things take a darker turn. Daniel storms into the Rovers desperate for alcohol. Not celebration. Not relaxation. But even there, control slips away from him. Adam immediately blocks Sean from serving him, clearly recognizing Daniel is emotionally spiraling. Now on the surface, Adam may look responsible here. But psychologically this moment is explosive. Because Daniel doesn't hear concern anymore. He hears judgment. Another person deciding he can't be trusted. Another reminder that his reputation is collapsing publicly. So he leaves. Angrier than before. More isolated than before. And then he sees Megan. The woman at the center of the scandal that destroyed his professional life. And suddenly all that humiliation finally has a face. What happens next is chilling. Daniel unleashes everything at her. His rage. His bitterness. His grief. His humiliation. Weeks of emotional pressure suddenly erupt in one confrontation. But the terrifying question hanging over the scene is simple. How far will Daniel go? Because this no longer feels like a man calmly defending himself. This feels like somebody desperately trying to reclaim power after becoming socially powerless. And socially powerless people can become unpredictable very quickly. But that may not be the whole truth. Because Coronation Street quietly plants another fascinating psychological layer beneath Daniel's breakdown. What if Daniel isn't just angry at Megan? What if he's furious because deep down he knows his life was already fragile before the scandal ever began? The online torment exposed cracks that were already there. Professional insecurity. Fear of failure. Emotional dependency on public approval. And now all of it is collapsing at once. Meanwhile, another emotionally devastating story continues unfolding around Summer. In the visiting room, she admits to Todd that she's considering pleading guilty to manslaughter because she feels trapped. Not because she necessarily believes she's guilty. But because emotionally exhausted people often start confusing surrender with relief. That detail matters enormously. Summer no longer sounds like someone fighting for justice. He sounds like someone trying to escape pressure. And Todd is completely heartbroken watching it happen. Especially when Lisa refuses to simply hand Todd his phone back after police questioning. One sentence. One hesitation. And suddenly Todd realizes this investigation may be far from over. Because every answer inside Weatherfield seems to create 3 more questions. And then another dangerous power struggle quietly begins elsewhere. Carl approaches Tyrone in the pub with terrifying confidence. No shouting. No violence. Just psychological intimidation. He tells Tyrone he can see fear in his eyes. That he knows he's hiding something. And that eventually, the truth will surface. Now this scene works brilliantly because Carl doesn't actually need proof. Fear itself becomes the weapon. The moment Tyrone reacts nervously, Carl gains control. And suddenly Tyrone looks trapped inside a game he may not even fully understand. But perhaps the most unexpected tension comes from Leanne. Idris openly flirts with her at speed dial, suggesting another night out together. At first, it almost feels refreshing compared to the darkness surrounding everyone else. But Alya immediately senses danger. And honestly, he may be right. Because Idris moves through conversations very strategically. Calm. Charming. Careful. The kind of personality Coronation Street often uses before revealing deeper complications underneath. Especially when he suddenly asks Alya to handle his legal affairs. That detail feels important. Too important. Because in Weatherfield, legal paperwork and charm rarely exist together without consequences following close behind. And that's what makes this entire episode feel so unsettling. Nobody feels emotionally stable. Nobody feels fully honest. Nobody feels entirely safe. Not because there's one huge villain controlling everything, but because trust itself is slowly disappearing from the street. And once a community loses trust, every relationship becomes dangerous. Every conversation becomes strategic. Every emotional reaction becomes a potential disaster waiting to happen. But here's the biggest theory of all. What if Daniel's confrontation with Megan becomes the moment Weatherfield finally turns against him permanently? Because public opinion has already shifted. Students are filming him. People are mocking him openly. Even his allies are starting to treat him carefully. And once somebody becomes socially isolated inside Coronation Street, their downfall often accelerates brutally fast. But there's another possibility. What if Daniel finally stops trying to defend himself entirely? What if humiliation transforms into something colder? More detached? More dangerous? Because sometimes the most emotionally devastating moment isn't when somebody explodes. It's when they stop caring what happens next. If you enjoyed this breakdown, subscribe to Coronation Street Update for more emotional Coronation Street spoilers, dark theories, and cinematic drama breakdowns every single day. Because in Weatherfield right now, nobody's secrets stay buried forever.